Okay, welcome back. This is Wayne Madsen with the Wayne Madsen Report, the Saturday Roundup, coming to you live tonight from Washington. And let's go back to the phones. We have Ken calling in from New York.
Yeah,
hello, Ken.
Yeah, Wayne, I was just looking through your decisis of the UN General Assembly meeting, and I had a couple questions for you.
Go ahead.
Are you there?
Yes, I am. Go ahead.
Thinking, what official purpose it might serve for the UN General Assembly to meet in New York. And it seems, in my opinion, that the United States should just reject the United Nations, and we should, as citizens of the United States, file a petition against the United Nations and withdraw from it.
Well, the whole idea of the United Nations, the whole idea began in the final months of World War II, was to prevent.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. But
and look at the success rate. Many of the wars since then have been engineered by members of the UN Security Council, the permanent members. United
exactly,
States,
and one of them is now our president, who has committed treason by being the head of the UN Security Council. Is that correct?
Well, he did sit in the Security Council meeting last year as the president of the Security Council, because the U.S. had the seat that particular month. That's a rotating seat in the Security Council. But the problem with the UN now, and I have spoken to one former Secretary General who basically said that when Old Man Bush, that was Boutros Ghali, Old Man Bush said, I want you to be more of a general than a secretary. This was just to get him to help get this huge coalition to fight against Iraq in the first Gulf War, Desert Storm. And then when Clinton came in, he says, well, now you're no longer a general, you got to be more of a secretary. And he bucked that. He says, no, because I don't take orders from the United States. And, of course, he was engineered out of office and replaced with Kofi Annan, who, when he got a little bit too big for his shoes, the U.S. engineered him out. And now we have this ridiculous guy, Ban Ki-moon, from South Korea, who I pretty much linked him to the Unification Church of Sunyoung-moon. No family relationship.
That's what comes to my mind when I hear it. But, yeah.
Yeah, no, his name is, well, it's Ban Ki-moon and Of course, Sun Myung-moon, they call him Mooney.
Ban Ki, yeah.
They don't call him Sonnies in his case. But anyway, the UN has become basically a contrivance for the corporations. They run the World Bank, they run the IMF, but the one thing that the General Assembly does serve. It does serve those countries that don't get a voice internationally. Look, Ahmadinejad, although he was mistranslated, his speech was misreported.
Well, I've seen that before, and the fact is, Wayne, that we're as citizens of the United States, we're not being allowed access to actually seeing what's going on there.
No. As a matter of fact,
as we're not with C-SPAN. I've seen that going on with C-SPAN recently.
Yes.
And another thing I wanted you to address for me, if you would, is the open resignation of members of Obama's cabinet. Mm-hmm. And if you see any correlation to this going on with that.
Well, you're right. I just on the UN, I've been credentialed to cover the UN General Assembly the last 2 years.
Because for the U.S. delegation to walk out and the British delegation to walk out just because of Ahmadinejad's remarks, okay, and that sends a message in and of itself. And I think that the American people are allowed to see only that and not allowed to take anything else in context.
Oh, absolutely.
That is exactly why we should petition that the U.S. be withdrawn from the United Nations.
Well, Susan Rice, who's our ambassador to the UN, she is absolutely one of the worst people at the State Department. She is very much of a warmonger. Her husband is a producer for ABC News. He produces Christine Amanpour's program this week on Sunday. Now we know that Amanpour interviewed Ahmadinejad. One thing you should know about Amanpour, she's married to Jamie Rubin, who's Madeleine Albright's former press secretary, and she's an Iranian Christian. So obviously she's biased against Ahmadinejad. And I would also point out, the last 2 years I was credentialed to cover the UN General Assembly. This year my request for credentials was turned down. So obviously they don't want independent media there. They only want the lickspittles like these idiots on. We heard, the NPR types and the PBS types and the Fox Newses. We don't get the real stories. And I noticed those delegations, many of them when the U.S. Delegation walked out, some of them were holding their heads in their hands. It was childish. It was just so childish to see the U.S. and the British. Of course, the Israelis weren't even there. They had already left. And a couple of Costa Rica, Uruguay, Spain, Italy, France. I mean, it's just, and it really, last year we had Gaddafi there who tore up the UN Charter. So this UN body, and Ahmadinejad said the same thing, who gives the 5 permanent members of the Security Council the authority to run this organization? The world has certainly changed since World War II, and I think they're both correct. Go ahead. Are you still with it?
That as far as the American people go and what we're allowed to observe, and even if we research it, I think we're being fed a lot of misinformation and disinformation, and things are not as they seem.
Oh, right.
But I'm looking at our own cabinet, the president's own cabinet.
He's in trouble. He's in trouble. This is why Axelrod is leaving next year. Emmanuel,
can you cite a precedent in relation to the president's own cabinet leaving with 2 years of office?
Only towards the end of their administration. If they're a 2-term president, we see a lot of bailouts at the end of the second term. Obviously, they know they're going to. Do you see this as Obama preparing for a second term and being elected in a second term? No, I think I believe he may not run again. I think he may forego a second term. The chatter is that Michelle doesn't like the job as First Lady. Carla Bruni, the wife of Sarkozy, has a new book out. She says Michelle Obama told her that this job is pure hell.
That doesn't mean anything. That's pure scuttlebutt. That's pure scuttlebutt as far as I'm concerned.
But
I'm looking at Emmanuel and Axelrod, okay, whose positions are gone.
Right. Okay. Right. Well, they're leaving. Right. Larry Summers is leaving.
Yeah.
What was that?
And many others. Yeah. So what happens to all the czars that he's appointed in his cabinet? Are they leaving too? I mean, is this all a farce? Is this something that we can,
Well, one thing you got to know.
Compensation toward. I mean, this election. I mean, American people are still being told that it's a left-right paradigm and everything else, and it's still the same crap that we've been presented with. Well, what I've seen in the last 3 months is very disturbing. I'll go now and let you.
Okay. Well, all good points. There's also it's also being reported that the National Security Advisor, retired General Jim Jones, may be leaving. We know Gates is leaving. He should have never been Secretary of Defense. That should say to everyone that this is a continuation of the Bush administration to keep Bob Gates, who's been basically a consigliere for the Bush family as Secretary of Defense. When I saw that, no, this isn't bipartisanship. This is control, extending control from Bush to Obama. The same people are in charge here, but definitely it's more than just scuttlebutt, because when you have the First Lady of France writing a book saying that Michelle, and this comports with what I heard in Chicago when I was out there investigating Obama and Emmanuel. He has a thin skin. He may not be ready for a really tough campaign in 2012. Remember, we've seen it happen before. Lyndon Johnson, who messed up the whole Vietnam War, said he wasn't running again, surprised everyone. He had already been in some of the primaries. won the New Hampshire primary but pulled out. We hear Obama say things, well, my girls are growing up faster than I realize, they're going to be teens soon. When you get those kinds of public statements, there's usually a reason for it. I'm not saying it's an absolute fact he's not going to run again, but there's a lot of inside Washington talk that he may be laying the ground not to run for a second term. And look, it's going to be, I want to spend more time with the family. Michelle apparently told him, well, you can make more money as a one-term president than Bill Clinton has made after 2 terms in the White House. And he's got the Nobel Peace Prize Obama does under his belt, which is going to equate to a lot of speaking fees, book deals, corporate board memberships. These people are all about making money. And I think he's just going to say, look, I got this on my resume and I can use this. He's not even 50 years old yet. So imagine the amount of money he can make as an ex-president. He'll be a lousy ex-president. He certainly won't be a Jimmy Carter, who was probably the best ex-president we've ever had in this country. But I don't think it's a foregone conclusion he's going to run again. He may, but I think there's signs and out there that could indicate he has a thin skin. He does not like criticism. Michelle Obama hates criticism. This next election, if he decides to run again, will not be a cakewalk for him, and he knows it. But let's. I want to play this quick clip here of what happened in Pennsylvania this past. We found out this past week. Institute for Terrorism Response and Research. This is Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! Reporting on this company that was spying on demonstrators in Pennsylvania. Governor Rendell said he didn't know about it. Rendell's the biggest crook and liar Harrisburg's ever seen. Listen to this clip.
Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell has apologized following the disclosure his administration paid a private firm to monitor a number of local activist groups. The Philadelphia-based Institute of Terrorism and Research Response received $125,000 to gather material for state anti-terrorism bulletins. The bulletins included information on an anti-BP candlelight vigil, a gay and lesbian festival, and even a rally to support Rendell's own campaign to increase spending on public education. The company also monitored opponents of drilling in the Marcellus Shale, noting their plans to attend public hearings and screen the documentary Gasland. In addition to law enforcement agencies, the so-called intelligence was also passed on to private entities, including gas companies. At a news conference, Rendell apologized to the targeted groups.
I apologize to the Marcellus Shale protesters. I apologize to the taxpayers protesters. I apologize to the lesbian and gay Pride Festival. I apologize to virtually every single name that was on this list.
Governor Rendell says he just learned of the monitoring in the past week, but has refused to fire the director of Pennsylvania's Office of Homeland Security. The company that carried out the spying, Institute of Terrorism and Research Response, has extensive ties with the Israeli government. On its website, the company bills itself, quote, as the preeminent Israeli-American security firm. The website also touts the company's, quote, Israeli-style training and says all its courses, quote, are approved by the Israeli Ministry of Defense.
Well, there you have it. Israelis spying. And this company was operating out of a P.O. box in Philadelphia and another one in Jerusalem. Rendell said he didn't know anything about it. That was a $125,000 contract, maybe not a lot of money when you're dealing with the waste we see from state governments. But the mere fact he wouldn't fire the Homeland Security Director, James Powers, indicates he knew about this contract. Rendell is a big supporter of Israel and former mayor of Philadelphia. Israel, and I've also reported this past week about people meeting the description of those remember those Israeli art students who were casing neighborhoods? Well, we have now people claiming to be contractors doing it in the suburbs of Atlanta, targeting the home of former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, who spent time in an Israeli jail trying to take crayons to kids in Gaza, by the way, and one of her colleagues. But these individuals driving a vehicle, a Ford pickup truck. Let me give you the license tag number. Illinois 648-2185. That's Illinois 648-2185. Police won't do anything about it. Some police try to do something on the art students and the Israeli movers, who all of them seem to have some role before and after 9/11. Ahmadinejad reads the internet too. He knows these stories. But it's high time we get tough with Israel on this. We really, until they pull out their intelligence agents out of this country that are now menacing neighborhoods in Atlanta and all across the United States. The Israeli art students have shown up in Southern California, targeting the homes of employees of the Transportation Security Administration. Shouldn't that send some alarm bells across the nation? We need to sever relations with that government, kick their diplomats out, round up their spies, and put them on the next plane to Ben Gurion Airport. Enough is enough with this country. This country is responsible for a genocide in Gaza and the West Bank and in Lebanon, and now they're spying on people in Pennsylvania, casing neighborhoods all across this country. If this were Chinese or Italians or Polish or Cubans, you'd hear it all over Fox News. But because it's Israel, we can't say anything because we'll be accused of being anti-Semitic. Look, it's a country that is a hostile intelligence threat against this nation. And now what do these people in Congress want to do? They want to exchange Jonathan Pollard, a convicted Israeli spy who was responsible for the deaths of U.S. agents all across the Middle East, because he outed them to the Israelis, and they used that information to blackmail them or tell the countries they were in their identities. They gave some of that information to the Soviet Union, that they want this guy released to Israel. These people in Congress that are supporting this, people like Weiner in New York and all his colleagues, these are disloyal Americans. I don't want to sound like Joe McCarthy. Joe McCarthy was on weak ground, of course, with his allegations. These are not weak allegations against these individuals. These are disloyal Americans. These are dual loyalists who are loyal more to Israel than to this country that puts them in Congress. And it's high time we call attention to it and put the heat on these individuals and put the heat on their chosen country that they're loyal to, Israel. This is Wayne Madsen for Washington. We will be right back after this short break.